Greetings, my little Guzzling Gourmets. We're going to make a cake, a sort of cake anyway. We're going to make a banana and yoghurt cake with a butterscotch topping. Now, before we can really get making the cake, we've got to make our butterscotch. So, for that, we're going to need a pan, we're going to need some sugar, 150 grams of caster sugar, we're going to need 100 grams of soft butter that's already been cut into cubes, and a little bit of water. So that's what you're going to need to make your butterscotch. So let's get started then. So I've got my pan on here and I'm going to put that sugar into there. And at this stage I'm going to add just really about 2 tablespoons of water. What we don't want to do is like saturate it with water. And then we're going to put it onto a medium heat, and what we want this to do is to start to caramelise. Now, we don't really want to be stirring it or anything like that because you'll end up getting it crystallising. So all we'll do is we'll just obviously keep our eye on it. We don't want it burning. And then, like I said, you're going to want your butter nice and soft and cubed up, because when that's ready we'll be adding the butter a little bit at a time. And this we've got to be careful, because at this stage there will be caramel when we add the butter, and you get that one, yeah, it'll burn you, because we're going to just swirl that until the butter's more or less all mixed in, before we then use a spatula just to completely mix it and emulsify the two together. So I'm going to leave this to start coming up temperature. Like I said, we need to keep our eye on it, don't want it burning. So when it just starts to go brown, that's when we're going to add our butter. Right, so the caramel's just going a nice brown colour. So at this point, I'm going to put in a cube of that butter, and then we're just going to swirl it, and we're going to just keep adding the butter until we've got that whole 100 grams of butter pretty much all melted into it. It's going a nice golden brown colour now. So just be careful when you're swirling it, that you obviously don't smash it, because it'll hurt. So I'm just going to get that butter all dissolved in. So that's all my butter now in there. I'm just going to give it a good stir around to make sure it's all thoroughly mixed together. And what I've got here is ideally a 9-inch, this is about 8 or 8 and a bit, cake tin. And I've greased that a lot with butter. Okay, with some of that softened butter, not the 100 grams that went in there, but some extra. I've made sure that's thoroughly greased. This is one of these loose bottom ones. I'm a bit worried this might leak out, so I've got it on a tray. And what we're going to do now is we're going to pour all that butterscotch into that pan. Okay. And if it hasn't really sort of spread all round, we just give it a little bit of a shake around to get it to nicely spread out. At this point, we're now just going to put it to one side. I've got my oven on, preheated up to 180. We're now going to make the cake mixture, the batter, to go into that. So into a large mixing bowl, I'm going to add 250 grams of Greek yogurt. He says splashing it. I've got the zest of 1 whole lemon, and in that goes. I want some vanilla extract, 1 teaspoon, in that goes. I've got some caster sugar. This time I've only got, how much caster sugar have I got? How much caster? Can't see how much caster sugar I've got now. 100 grams, sorry, in that goes. And then the final thing, well not final, well it is actually in this bit, is we're just going to add 3 whole eggs. And then we're just going to whisk that together before we add our dry ingredients, or our flour and such like. Oops, got that one down the side. So I'm just going to give this a good old whisk together. There's those ingredients all together. Now what I have here is some desiccated coconut. I've got 60 grams. That's going in. Just going to quickly mix that in. And then I've got 2 teaspoons of baking powder. That's going to go in. Just going to quickly stir that in. And then we've got some plain flour, which I've already sifted to get a little bit of air into it. And I've got, how much of that? I've got 200 grams of that, which we're just going to make sure we sort of get that all mixed in. Might want to switch to a spatula for this one. Okay, now this is going to be, you know, a wet batter. You could, if you wanted, if you want to reduce how coarse the coconut is. These are quite coarse grains, if you like, of the coconut. If you wanted, you could give it little bits in a blender or food process just to make it a little bit finer. That's entirely up to you. Depends how much you like your coconut texture, as it were. So that's all in there. And then finally, what I've got here is 130 grams of vegetable oil. I'm just going to put that in there, and we're going to mix that in, and then that will be our batter ready to go. But before we put it in there, obviously we're going to need to add some bananas. So you'll want possibly 6 bananas, but I'm just going to get this all mixed in first, and then we'll do the banana bit. So I've got my bananas, and what I'm going to do, I'm just going to trim them end bits off. I'm going to cut them into about 1 inch long pieces. Try and get the heights pretty much the same. And I'm not going to do all the bananas just yet. I'm going to see how we go, because what we're going to do is we're going to take each banana piece and we're going to stack it into our pan on top of that caramel. Doesn't matter if it sinks a bit. Okay, and we're basically just going to fill. I can't really tip that up and show you very easily because of the caramel in there, but basically we're going to coat the whole of the bottom in those banana pieces, obviously cut side down. Okay, so we've got a whole complete layer of banana. So there you go, we've covered that bottom layer with banana. So at this point we're going to pour in our cake batter. So you're going to want a fairly deep dish. I mean, it shouldn't really rise too much. Excuse me. Shouldn't really rise too much. But obviously we want to give it a bit of room. Give it a smooth over. Okay, it looks lumpy because obviously the coconut in it. Like I say, if you don't like it quite that textured, then blitz your coconut a bit. And then what we're going to do now, I've got to be a bit careful with this because this has got a removable bottom. It's going to make a lot of noise. We're just going to bang it to try and obviously get some of that air out, particularly so it sinks in around where that banana is. So that's now going to go into that oven, 180 degrees, and it's probably going to take about 30 to 45 minutes to cook. Obviously we'll be checking it with a skewer to make sure it's cooked through the cake bit as well, in any way, and then we'll be bringing it out and letting it cool for about 30 minutes before we tip it all out. So, better get your timer on before I forget. See when it comes out. So that's had just a fraction over 30 minutes. As I suspected, some of that butterscotch did all leak out once they got hot. So now all I'm going to do is just going to put it on this wire rack, and we're just going to let it cool for about 30 minutes, at which point we'll turn it out. So get my timer back on and we'll check it out in 30. So now we're going to turn it out. So I've got a plate over there, just going to turn it over. Just lift the top off. Quick rinse. And there you can see our banana and yoghurt, or banana, coconut and yoghurt cake with the butterscotch taste topping. So we'll let that cool a little bit more and then we'll have a taste. So here we go. There's our cake. Here's a bit of it. Bit of banana. Some a bit of the cake to go with it. So a lot of the butterscotch did unfortunately leak out of me bottom, you know, the removable bottom pan. And what I did do is then drizzle some of that back over the top. So let's take that end bit there with a bit of butterscotch. If you don't like banana, you won't like this. So is obviously very banana-y. You've got the sweetness of the butterscotch, but not overpoweringly so. I was expecting it to be a lot sweeter, to be honest. The banana, nice and soft, which is why when you make this, by the way, you don't want bananas too ripe in the first place. But if you like bananas and you like cake and you like a touch of butterscotch, excellent. There we go. Oh, and I'm getting the coconut through in the cake now. So there you go. Banana coconut yoghurt cake with butterscotch sauce.